Hello everyone. Back at it again. Another episode, Olive Tree Concepts. It's peak of summer. It's beginning. It's been a busy last 2 weeks at our church, New Vision. We had this whole event last week, Soul Care. Those who are in it, those who know, diving deep, understanding the aspects of God's love, deliverance, family, generational things, and all this stuff like that. So I didn't really get a chance to make a video last week because it was a lot of information to process, but also being involved a lot in all of these things. Definitely saw that it was a little moment that God was weaving in to dig deep and just process and go through new endeavors, new season. It's been a lot of prep work, getting ready for this new season that's in my life and this new season in Sue's life, both what God is doing with us individually and what He's doing together. But yeah, that Soul Care conference with Dr. Rob Reimer, absolutely phenomenal. It's based off a book. Well, he does a conference off the book that he wrote. So any of you, I highly recommend read that book, Soul Care. Wonderful stuff, great information. Definitely makes you change your perspective and dig deeper on yourself, your personal needs, personal things that need to get worked on. As long as we are alive on earth, I'm a big believer in this, that we are always under character development. There's always a way to get better. There's always something that needs to be broken, some demon that needs to be cast out, some bad habit that needs to be changed. So we need to learn to be humble. We need to learn to recognize that we do not know everything, nor will we ever know everything. And a stupid person is one who thinks that they know it all and they have this cocky, prideful attitude. We have to be surrendered under God's will, under God's ways, and we have to be humble. We have to really learn to be humble and recognize that we are not what we think we are. You're always capable of being better. You're always capable of learning more, but never think that you are the one that's on top. Only God is on top. So all that little intro to dig right into this episode 2 on this Love or Lust series. Now this one, I'm talking about 2 different kinds of loves that sometimes people get confused of. Like I said, these are based off of biblical concepts, biblical terms, but these are going off of Greek words, Greek definitions in the Bible that give more clarity to this. Because I feel like English, I always repeat that, but English is very limited language. There's a lot of there's just not enough words to really perfectly compartmentalize what each definition, what each word, each example or emotion or situation really is. So the 2 that I'm tackling today, it won't be that long. It's pretty clear. I feel like when you put a name to it, it makes things clearer and it gives that aha moment of oh, so that's what that is, So today I'm going to be talking about Storge and Pragma. So I'm going to go with Pragma first because I feel like this is the one where people mess up a lot. And they just kind of overlook thinking that Pragma love is actually a good, healthy kind of love, but it's actually not. But hopefully this brings some clarity and puts a name to what it is. So a word that we know in English, where we use a lot, that comes from the word pragma is pragmatic. So pragmatic, by definition, is someone or something. It's practical, sensible, and realistic. So it has a tendency of being only logical and intellectual based. So it is pragmatic. It's something being done out of like the pragma off of this, like love. It's something where you're doing off of a sense of duty, like out of a sense of due diligence, like an obligation, like you're doing this because you have to do it, like you're forced to do it. It's not something that happens organically or something done by actual love or by passion. It's kind of way of thinking or way of doing that is like a means to an end. It's very conditional, it's very transactional. So this is the kind of way where it's like you're not necessarily doing family or doing relationship or doing the things in your life, a job or whatever the case may be, out of actual love, out of drive, out of passion, out of something that feels like this is healthy. But in reality, you are doing this action of your what, like the phrase that they use, you're faking it to make it, right? So you're doing these acts out of pure obligation, out of conditions, out of transactions. It's like a negotiations or whatever. So it's never really true. It's never really authentic, you know? And this is very difficult because I feel like there are many men and women, whether by marriage or being parents or even children to their parents or parents to their children, whatever the case may be, where, you know, you are doing things just to do them. You don't actually love them. You don't actually want to be with them. You don't actually, you know, care for them, but you just feel this sense of duty, sense of like it's just logical based, like you're just doing it out of your own intellect, knowing like, no, I have to do this because I did this. This can be very, as I was studying this, what it came to mind is like this can be something very like shame based, very guilt based, like you're doing this because you have no other choice. For example, a very common scenario that we see a lot all across the world is when you know, man and a woman, or even like happens teenagers scenario, like, you know, boy, girl, they have sex, you know, they, you know, fall into lust or whatever. They don't necessarily love each other. They don't necessarily want to, you know, they're not thinking about being boyfriend and girlfriend. They're not thinking about even like marriage or anything like that. But they, you know, do the deed. They get together, and then the girl gets pregnant. So many times in many families, many scenarios where they think, oh, because the girl is pregnant, they have to get married now. This is very shame-based because you had sex out of wedlock, right? You are ashamed at the fact that, like, you know, you did whatever you did, and you feel like you need to own up to it, and both sides agree upon getting married because now you have to raise this child. So the feeling is as if you're forced to get married. You're forced to, you know, own up to things. And in some ways, yes, you have to like own up because it is a consequence. Like, it's not rocket science. Like, the only way for babies to come is through having, you know, sex. So if you can't handle the idea or the responsibility of raising a child, then, you know, don't do it. But this is, you know, the world. People fall to their temptations all the time. So there's very much a reality. But this is an example of what pragma would be, where both sides of the party, and even both families sometimes feel they put this pressure on, where now, because the girl is pregnant, the boy and the girl, the man and the woman, they got to get married. And that's somehow, because they get married, it's gonna fix the problem, what they're calling is a problem, because a child is not a problem. A child is a gift from God, and it is, holy and wondrous and an incredible thing, to make life and to be able to steward that life. But that is an example. So you can see how much that is difficult, and how a lot of times, most times, that situation fails. People can't be together under those circumstances, and it's a forced misconception. It takes a tribe to raise a child. It takes a multitude of people, and it has to be something out of absolute love. It cannot be something that is forced. So when a situation like that happens, and it's very intellectual based, and you're doing things out of that, you can see how that already starts to become very messed up. It's a messed up atmosphere. The child gets raised in this kind of feeling where they're never actually loved or accepted. The man and the woman might never actually ever really love each other. So there's always this tension, there's always this fighting, there's always this argument, there's always this just constant going head to head. And this is very difficult. And that's one example, but there are other scenarios. I'm sure you guys can think of it already, just thinking about this kind of example. There's other ways you can put one and one together and see how Pragma can basically reveal itself, in different scenarios and different kind of relationships and different kind of ordeals. This is also something that falls into the love of things, materialism things, because it is all a logical based sense of thinking and a sense of doing things. You're only really thinking about what benefits self, the things that benefit yourself, things that benefit the situation. You're kind of weighing out the pros and cons of how this will benefit you, and if you feel like this will work out, then you'll get into it. You'll get into this kind of scenario or predicament. This is also as well another way. It's a very enduring kind of process, that you're doing this characterized by shared goals. You're weighing out the compatibility and seeing if it works, it makes sense, you'll make it happen or continue with it. So this is I'd say a very selfish, very difficult way of expressing or seeing what this is. Now, I will say that because it builds such a sense of endurance and perseverance of wanting to make that work and staying in that kind of situation, sometimes what does end up happening, because it's not always bad, a unique scenario that ends up happening, and sometimes it does actually happen a lot more than we recognize, is that being in that situation and being in scenarios where you're caught in this type of pragma love, that over time, getting to know one another and whatever this type of relationship dynamic is, and enduring in this relationship, you get to understand the other person more and more. And through this relationship that started through compatibility, that started transactional, that started through, meeting each other's needs or meeting each other's ways through materialism or, benefits or whatever the case may be, that spending so much time and so much repetition and so much, opening up, that over time, people actually, because of the choice of doing this logically based, end up reverting their hearts and actually falling in love with this person, whether falling in love in a marital aspect, through a husband and wife kind of dynamic, or they gain this sense of real true mutual respect, a true like loving bond that happens through, that can develop true friendship, that can develop like brotherhood or sisterhood or something like that, of that dynamic, you know. So it's not always bad. Even like workspace kind of like a really healthy kind of like friend bond, love, or something like that. So it says something to credit to that, in that pragma aspect, that if somebody really does endure and goes through it, they can end up, it is possible, you know, to switch the mentality and actually go into a true kind of deep love and respect and all that kind of stuff. But at its core, it's those the list of those things that I stated before, you know. Now the other aspect I thought is very unique as well, and this is seen a lot, especially, you know, in the Bible, but a lot in day-to-day kind of life we can recognize this. But what is very important to note, and I'm going to state this out from the beginning, that I'm talking about Storge right now, Storge love. In order for Storge, S-T-O-R-G-E, and in order for Storge to actually be authentic and real, and for Storge to be this type of love, that this right type of love, it is all very like positive, healthy based, organic, authentic type of love. This is not a toxic kind of like, you can't fake this kind of love. You can't fake this kind of bond, you know. So a Storge type of love is very much real and authentic, and it is something that is very true. It is very true and is very undeniable, you know. So a Storge type of love is a strong type of affection or attachment that happens between family members, usually between the concept, you know, the context between parents and children, or between parents with one another, you know, like there's a type of like that family kind of dynamic. But it has more to do towards like, because it's not a sexual kind of love. There's nothing in that aspect behind it. It's just very like this real, true, authentic, you know, love, die for my kind of family kind of thing. So it's a lot to do with like parents to children, children to their parents, between siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, like things like that, you know. Very close friends, people that you consider like your brothers or your sisters, you know. So this is a very healthy kind of, very positive, reinforcing, very like uplifting, supportive kind of love dynamic. So that's what Storge is. So a lot of what we see examples of that in the Bible, like the more famous ones, you see Ruth and Naomi in the book of Ruth. That kind of dynamic love that is built between Ruth and Naomi, because Ruth was first married to Naomi's son, but he passed away. So Ruth chose to not abandon Naomi, because she still considered her, you know, like her mother-in-law. She really accepted her, and Naomi really accepted her like a daughter. So they continued this relationship between, you know, until you know, they passed away. They always remained close to one another, and they always remained taking care of one another and loving one another. So that is very true, authentic, real love. It wasn't negotiation based. It wasn't like a sense of, oh, I have to do this because of due diligence or whatever kind of aspect. But this is like, no, I really love you. I really want you to be in my life, and no matter what happens, I want you to remain in my life. You know, another example is the love dynamic between Noah and his family, the relationship they built. You know, of course, every family has its issues and mistakes and all that stuff, but Noah and his family are another example of like, you know, because God chose that whole family to stay alive. So there has to say something in that, you know. God is saying something in that aspect that even though it doesn't go super in depth for like chapters and chapters and chapters going in depth about Noah and his family, but there's something authentic in that. The fact that the family never betrayed each other. It took 100 years for it's estimated about 75 to 100 years that it took Noah to build the ark in itself. So Noah wasn't building that ark by himself. The family were doing it all together. So there's this faith-based thing that happened with the family, and they all got each other's back. They believed in what God was saying to Noah. They believed in the relationship that Noah had with God, and the family cultivated that relationship together. And they supported one another. They did not put his father down. They did not put Noah down. And Noah wasn't putting his kids down either. He wasn't treating them poorly. He wasn't disrespecting them, criticizing them. There wasn't any of that. It goes to show that there was this authentic trueness in that family, for the fact of them all standing together. Nobody disrespecting one another, and nobody abandoning one another. Nobody rejected one another. They stayed true to the whole endeavor, building that ark together. And when time came, when God sent the flood, they were all saved together, and they all endured together, and they all build their bond together. And then another one, last, to give it a very authentic example, is the dynamic between Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. They were, brother and sisters, So we know how close they were with their relationship with Jesus, but it also goes to show as well how close they were between the three of them, because they were always together. They always had this powerful sibling bond between the three of each other, and they showed as well this they were unapologetically themselves. They were authentic in themselves and true disciples of Jesus. They were authentically in love with Jesus, in love with what he was doing, in love with the kingdom culture, in love with the fact of recognizing the Messiah is there, and they were real with that. And with that made a bond so much stronger within the three of them. And we saw how much Jesus used them in the four Gospels, and how much their testimonies, impacted. And it goes and shows as well how close they were, because of all the people that Jesus chose to do such amazing miracles, he chose Lazarus to resurrect him after 4 days. This is the only time in history you ever heard of something like that. And there's this uniqueness in that bond, even when the scripture in John talks about when Jesus wept, everybody gets marveled at that aspect, but it goes to show the humanity of Jesus, but the authenticity of that relationship, to reveal a grieving heart in such a way, to reveal God himself, how he can be so close to us as humans. That relationship between Lazarus, Mary, and Martha speaks volumes of how a true, authentic, healthy, supportive, godly, truly godly, love ordained from the heavens kind of relationship is a Storge type of love. So that spoke a lot to me. Going through this topic these past 2 weeks really put a name to certain things for me, and really made me think a lot about the truth of how to, I guess you can say, how you need to value yourself, how you need to recognize these different kinds of scenarios, these different kinds of types of love, types of categories, and you need to recognize your own value, and pay attention to not mix things up, and create healthy boundaries, and understand how to separate certain categories and know, is this actual true love, or is this something else? You need to learn to put a name to things. We need to learn to create separation in certain things. We can't just mix it all together and think that it's all the same. We need to know when something is actually from God and for us, or if it is something that the enemy is twisting and using to bring us down, to hurt us, to break us down and get caught up in a toxic relationship, or get caught up in something that is ungodly, that is out of character, out of God's norm. Just because something might seem normal or be familiar to us does not mean that it is the right thing, that it is a good thing, that it is a godly thing. You know, we need to learn to create healthy boundaries and create these separations and know when something is truly from God or if it is just our flesh feeding into our pride and our desires. So I hope this brought some clarity to some people, even understanding different dynamics within family. I will say this, just because you're blood does not mean that it is true love. You know, sometimes people, just because, you know, they share the same name or they share the same blood, they think they need to be loyal to default and die on that hill. No, that is not even what God does. You know, God states clearly in the Bible that there are some friendships that are even greater than blood, you know. So there is this bond that is created through the Spirit, through what people like to call soul ties, through friendships, through, you know, even within the family, extended family. There's some relationships within that people get closer and get deeper with one another than immediate family or an outside source, you know. So we need to realize the way that people treat us, the way that we treat others, and we need to see, you know, is this actually godly? Is this actually God ordained? In the manner of like, is this healthy? Is this positive? Is this supportive? Is this speaking life? You know, is this edifying? Is this strengthening me? Is this constructive? Is this building me up? Or is this relationship, is this person only putting me down, speaking bad about me, being angry or full of rage towards me? Are they just constantly criticizing me? Are they toxic to me? Are they manipulating me? Are they being spiteful and vindictive? You know, we need to put a name to these things, and we need to know the difference between what is of God and what is not. It doesn't matter if it's your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your friend, you know, a coworker, even a stranger. Sometimes strangers will treat you better than, you know, your parents or your siblings. So we need to see with a greater lens. We need to ask God to open our eyes, open our heart, open our mind to see things the way that He sees things, to view things through His perspective, and to be aligned with the way that He wants things to be done. So yeah, summer is right around the corner. We are here in June. Second half of the year has begun. A lot of miracles, a lot of great things happening, a lot of huge life changes are happening right now as well. God is doing amazing things. Big blessings coming on our end soon. When the time is right, soon I will be able to share more to the people around us, and I'll probably share some stuff over here as well through the Olive Tree Concepts channel. And once again, thank you for all of you who are supporting, all of you who are, you know, speaking life to me and encouraging me to continue to do this. I love how God has been breaking me, how God has been teaching me, how God has been building me back up and showing me, you know, going into more detail on things. And hopefully whatever that He pours into me, I'm able to pour out and speak life to all of you as well. I love you guys. Have, you know, an amazing day. Continue to do everything that the Holy Spirit is guiding you to do. Let the blood of Jesus cover you guys, protect you, anoint you, prosper you, give you the vision of what it is that He wants for you in this moment, in this season, in this new chapter, and that you guys can just be all in and just fully surrendered to allowing Him to guide your steps and to fill you with life. Love you guys. Until the next one.